Imagine waking up every single day next to the man you love, making his coffee the way he likes it, packing his lunch, kissing him goodbye before he leaves for another one of his business trips. Now imagine finding out, completely by accident, that 3 hours away, in another city, there is another woman, another house, and 2 children who call him Dad. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how a man can live 2 lives at once, how a woman missed the signs for years, and most importantly, how she found the strength to walk away and build a life that was finally, truly her own. If you're new here, this channel shares real, powerful life stories every single week. Stories about love, betrayal, family, and the strength it takes to start over. So make sure you stick around till the end, because this story has a twist that even Emily didn't see coming. Let's get into it. Emily was 34 years old. She lived in a quiet town outside Columbus, Ohio, in a small house with a white picket fence, the kind of house you see in movies about the perfect American family. She had been married to her husband, Daniel, for 12 years. They had 2 children together, a 9-year-old daughter named Ava and a 6-year-old son named Noah. From the outside, their life looked exactly like the dream. Daniel worked as a regional sales manager for a medical equipment company. His job required him to travel, sometimes 2, sometimes 3 times a month. At first, this felt normal. Completely normal. Lots of husbands travel for work. Lots of families make it work. But here's the thing about small doubts. They don't disappear. They sit quietly in the back of your mind, and they wait. For years, Emily had small feelings she couldn't explain. Daniel's phone was always locked, always face down on the table. He would step outside to take certain calls. Sometimes, he'd come home from a business trip and seem distant for days, like his mind was somewhere else entirely. Every time Emily asked him about it, he had an answer ready. It's just work stress. The company is going through changes. You're overthinking it, babe. And because she loved him, because she trusted him, she believed him. Every single time. This is something so many people don't talk about enough. When you love someone deeply, your brain will find a way to make excuses for them. Not because you're foolish, but because trust is supposed to be the foundation of a marriage. Without trust, what do you even have left? So, Emily pushed her doubts down. She focused on her kids, her part-time job at a local pharmacy, and keeping their home together. She told herself that whatever was going on with Daniel, it would pass. Marriages go through hard seasons. This was just one of them. She had no idea just how wrong she was. To understand how this story unfolded, we need to go back to the beginning, to understand who Daniel really was, and how a man builds an entire second life without the people closest to him ever suspecting a thing. Daniel and Emily met in college at Ohio State University. He was charming, confident, and always seemed to know exactly what to say. Their friends used to joke that he could sell ice to a snowman. That charm, that ability to make people believe whatever he wanted them to believe, would later become one of the most dangerous parts of who he was. They got married young, at 22. Daniel started his sales career shortly after, and it grew quickly. Within a few years, he was managing a large territory that included parts of Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. His job meant driving long distances and staying in hotels for days at a time. Now here's where it gets important. About 7 years into their marriage, Daniel's territory expanded to include a town called Bardstown in Kentucky, almost 3 hours away from their home. He started going there once, sometimes twice a month, for what he called client meetings. It was there, in Bardstown, that Daniel met a woman named Renee. According to what Emily would later discover, Renee worked at the front desk of the hotel Daniel stayed in during his trips. They started talking, then texting, then, over time, something more. But here's what makes this story different from a normal affair. Daniel didn't just have a relationship with Renee. He built an entire second life with her. He introduced himself to her as a man named David Cole, a divorce sales representative with no children. He told her he lived alone in an apartment in Columbus and traveled often for work. Renee had no idea Daniel was married. She had no idea Emily and the children existed. Over the next 4 years, Daniel, using the name David, dated Renee, moved in with her, and eventually they had 2 children together. A boy and a girl. Let that sink in for a moment. For 4 years, this man lived 2 completely separate lives. One life with Emily, Ava, and Noah in Ohio, and another life with Renee and their 2 children in Kentucky. 2 families, 2 homes, 2 versions of himself. And neither woman knew the other existed. How is this even possible? How does a man manage 2 families without either side finding out? The answer is disturbingly simple: control of information. Daniel controlled his own phone, his own schedule, his own money. He used a separate bank account for expenses in Kentucky. He used a different name with Renee, so if she ever searched for him online, nothing connected back to Emily. He was careful, calculated, and consistent, which, in the cruelest way possible, is exactly what made him a good husband and father on the surface. He simply split that same energy between 2 families without either of them knowing they were sharing him. This is the part of the story that shakes people the most. It wasn't a one-night mistake. It wasn't a short affair, he regretted. It was a fully built second life, maintained for years, with intention and planning. Now, let's get into how Emily found out, because the way the truth came out was almost too strange to believe. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in October. Emily was home, folding laundry, when a delivery truck pulled up outside. The driver handed her a package addressed to Daniel. Nothing unusual. Daniel often ordered work supplies online. But this package had a return address Emily didn't recognize. A children's clothing store in Bardstown, Kentucky. At first, she thought it was simply a shipping mistake. She almost set it aside without a second thought. But something, that same quiet doubt she had been ignoring for years, made her open it. Inside was a small blue jacket, size 4T, with a gift receipt. The name on the receipt wasn't Daniel's. It said David Cole. And there was a short handwritten note tucked inside. For our little man. Can't wait to see him wear this on our trip. Love, R. Emily stood in her kitchen holding that jacket for almost 10 minutes, unable to move. Her mind was racing, trying to find any explanation that made sense. A coworker's kid? A mistaken delivery? Anything other than what her gut was already screaming at her. That night, after Daniel came home from another business trip, she didn't say anything. She waited until he was asleep. Then she did something she had never done before in 12 years of marriage. She went through his phone. There, in a folder labeled simply Files, she found photos. Dozens of them. A woman she didn't recognize, Renee, smiling next to Daniel at what looked like a backyard barbecue. Photos of 2 small children. A birthday party with a banner that read, "Happy 3rd birthday, Mason." A family photo, all 4 of them, taken in front of a Christmas tree in a house Emily had never seen. In the photos, Daniel looked happy, comfortable, at home. Emily scrolled through message threads between Daniel and Renee that went back years. Conversations about school pickups, doctor's appointments, grocery lists. "I love you" text sent just hours after he had told Emily and their children the exact same words that same morning. She sat on the bathroom floor of her own home at 2 in the morning, learning that her husband had an entire second family, a woman who believed she was his only wife, and 2 children who believed he was their only father, fully present, fully theirs. The betrayal wasn't just that he had cheated. It was the sheer scale of the lie. 12 years, 2 children, an entire second household, and not one single sign that Emily could point to and say, "I should have known." She didn't confront him that night. She was too shocked, too afraid of what would happen if she said something before she understood the full truth. So, quietly, carefully, she began collecting evidence, screenshots, photos, bank statements she found later hidden in a folder in his home office, addresses, everything. It took her almost 3 weeks. 3 weeks of sleeping next to a man she no longer recognized, smiling at dinner, kissing him goodnight, all while building the case that would end their marriage. When she finally had enough proof, she made 2 very important decisions. First, she contacted a divorce attorney and quietly began the legal process, making sure her children and her finances would be protected before anything became public. Second, and this is the part that surprised even the people closest to Emily, she decided to reach out to Renee. Emily debated this for days. Was it her place? Would it make things worse? But in the end, she felt that Renee deserved to know the truth too. Renee was not the villain in this story. She was another woman, another mother, who had been just as deceived as Emily had. Emily sent Renee a message with photos, dates, and documents, proof of Daniel's real identity, his real marriage, his real children in Ohio. She wrote, simply, "I'm so sorry to be the one to tell you this. You deserve the truth, just like I do." Renee's response, when it came, broke Emily's heart in a different way. Renee had no idea. None. She had built her entire life around a man who didn't exist. David Cole was a fiction Daniel had created, piece by piece, to keep his two worlds from ever colliding. When Daniel came home from his next trip, Emily was ready. She had already moved a portion of their savings into a separate account, already spoken to a lawyer, already arranged for her sister to stay with the kids that evening. She placed the blue jacket on the kitchen table, along with printed photos from his phone.
She didn't yell.
She didn't cry, at least not in front of him. She simply asked one question. How long? Daniel's face went pale. He didn't deny it. He couldn't. After a long, heavy silence, he admitted everything. The 4 years, the double life, the name he used, all of it. His only explanation was that it started small and he didn't know how to stop. That was it. That was the answer to 12 years of marriage, 2 children, and a family torn in 2 directions. It started small, and he didn't know how to stop. Emily filed for divorce 2 weeks later. The months that followed were some of the hardest of Emily's life. Divorce is difficult under any circumstances, but discovering your entire marriage included a hidden second family adds a layer of grief that's hard to put into words. She wasn't just grieving the end of a relationship. She was grieving the version of her life she believed had been real. There was also the legal complexity. Because Daniel had 2 families, there were now questions about child support, custody, and finances that stretched across 2 states. Renee, understandably devastated, also pursued legal action of her own. Daniel lost his job shortly after the truth came out. The company discovered he had been falsifying travel expenses for years to fund his second household, using client meeting reports to cover trips that were really visits to Renee and their children. For Emily, the hardest part wasn't the anger. It was rebuilding trust in herself. She kept asking, "How did I not see this?" But over time, with the help of a therapist, she came to understand something important. The fact that she didn't see it wasn't a failure on her part. It was a reflection of how far Daniel was willing to go to hide it. Deception on that level isn't something a loving, trusting partner is designed to detect. It's not weakness to be deceived by someone skilled at deception. It's simply human. Slowly, Emily began to rebuild. She went back to school part-time to finish a nursing degree she had paused years earlier. She leaned on her sister, her close friends, and a local support group for women who had experienced similar betrayals, and she was shocked to learn just how many other women had stories eerily similar to hers. Ava and Noah struggled to understand why their dad no longer lived with them, but Emily made a promise to herself that no matter how broken she felt inside, her children would always feel safe, loved, and stable. She kept that promise every single day. 2 years later, Emily is doing well. She finished her nursing degree. She has a job she loves at a local hospital. Her children are thriving. And while trust doesn't come easily to her anymore, she says she finally feels like herself again. Not Daniel's wife, not someone managing someone else's secrets, but simply, fully Emily. When you really sit with a story, it teaches you something powerful about human nature, how far some people are willing to go to live a lie, and how strong the human spirit can be when that lie finally breaks. Emily didn't choose the betrayal. She had no control over Daniel's choices, but she had complete control over what she did after she learned the truth. She chose honesty over silence. She chose to protect her children over protecting a broken image of a perfect family. And she chose to rebuild her life instead of staying stuck in the wreckage of someone else's lies. That's really what the story is about. Not the betrayal itself, but the strength it takes to walk away from it, and the courage it takes to start over, even when starting over feels impossible. If there's one thing you take away from Emily's story, let it be this. Your intuition is not something to ignore. That quiet feeling in the back of your mind, the one that tells you something isn't right, it's worth listening to. Not with paranoia, but with honesty toward yourself. Because sometimes, the truth we're afraid to face is the very thing that sets us free. So to sum it all up, Emily built a life with a man for 12 years, only to discover he had secretly built an entire second family just 3 hours away. Through quiet strength, patience, and courage, she uncovered the truth, protected her children, and walked away to build a new, honest life for herself. Her story is a powerful reminder that no matter how hard the truth is to face, facing it is always better than living inside someone else's lie. And no matter how broken something feels in the moment, it is always possible to rebuild, stronger, wiser, and more at peace than before. If this story moved you, touched your heart, or made you think about trust and strength in a new way, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because we share real, powerful stories like this every single week. Drop a comment below and let us know what part of Emily's story stayed with you the most. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.